Welcome to This Week's Okay at Work with myself, Sarah Sawyer, and my colleague Russell Berger, was attorneys at Offit Kurman. And today we are talking about news legal headlines. So I know I'll get messages from clients that will be sending you along something that they saw, like a very exciting news headline that says that something has happened with some law in a case or some new change that's happened as it relates to a case. And sometimes those are really good articles. And sometimes I look at them and they're pretty incomplete, or really when you look down and you drill down, the really flashy headline that says something that really pulls the reader in is not quite accurate. Often because these cases are very nuanced and there's procedure and the people writing them maybe don't have the full understanding. So what are some things that people should be thinking about when they see these news headlines and be cautious about when it relates to these topics?
Yeah, well, number one, read past the headline, read the full article, read all the way to the end. And ultimately, what we would do, right, is we'd read the case and we'd skip the news article, the secondary source version of it, and we get to the primary source and derive our own learnings from that. But the thing is, law is pretty nuanced. There's a lot of gray area. Like that's where we spend the vast majority of our time as lawyers. So trying to drill something down to a headline or tweet is a very surface level way of trying to summarize something that's complicated and nuanced and filled with subtlety. I think the main takeaway is like, well, you got to really know what's going on and what you got to know the procedural history. You got to know the substantive analysis. And then you've also got to know how it applies to you and what is the application? What does this mean? And it's just something that you're not going to get that from a headline or an article.
Yeah, I think one thing that is a common mistake that actually all of us made when we first got into law school before someone told us how to read a case and how to decipher these things is that people like to get something that's buzzy that maybe a judge said, that some commentary or something that's in a case, and really pull from that. But exactly to your point, Russell, there's a lot of context around that. It could be as far as procedurally, it could maybe actually, even though it's written there and it looks flashy and it looks like it's telling you something and it's important, it's deceiving because for a lot of reasons that would take us a long time to go into and teach a little class on here at OK at Work, that might actually be not that relevant. And so it's tempting for either a layperson or a news reporter to want to pull that language and pull that little soundbite and present it as something that's important. And it's not like it wasn't said and it's not like it doesn't exist. That's true. But the impact of it, how it impacts people, how it impacts future cases, how it impacts that case itself really depends on a lot of different circumstances. And so I totally get why people, reporters or lay people get in there and go, oh, well, this thing is telling me X. This judge said this thing, and just think that means the whole world, but it's a little more nuanced.
Yeah, well, and the other point to keep in mind too is that people behave differently following a decision. So we're recording this shortly after President Trump's tariffs were ruled improper by the Supreme Court. But his reaction was to immediately, well, I'm going to issue different tariffs under a different law for a different reason. And that'll probably be subject to a different set of legal challenges. The point is, it's not fixed in time either. Litigants, parties, legislatures change what they do in response to this. And again, it's part of our job as lawyers. Well, how do we navigate this? Can we get around this? Do we need to circumvent it entirely? Is there a workaround? How do we help our client get to the point they want to get to, navigating whatever is in this kind of legal minefield? So even reading headlines, even if they're accurate, they're only accurate for that specific point in time because things will change and it's ever evolving.
And based on those specific facts and that specific circumstance. So I think the takeaway definitely is don't change everything you're doing based on the headline. Dig a little bit deeper, call the experts, make sure that your buzzy headlines are a good starting point to get interested in something. They are not the end point, that is for sure. Well, thanks, Russell. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Sarah.